Hi everyone, it's Keith here, Admin and Finance Officer at New Youth for Christ. Welcome to today's video, which is Transitions Day 3. Today we're going to look at the first part of the story of David, and we're looking at 1 Samuel 16 to 18. If you haven't already read the scriptures, make sure you give it a read afterwards. On the last video we finished at 1 Samuel 10, where Saul had just been made king and Saul was very much in God's favour. We're now at chapter 16 and Saul has lost God's blessing and Samuel the prophet has left him. God says to the prophet Samuel, "Go and see a man called Jesse, because one of his sons has been chosen by God to be the next king." Samuel goes to see Jesse, and Jesse has 7 of his sons, starting with the oldest, meet Samuel, but none of them are God's chosen one. Jesse sends out for his youngest son, David, who is out looking after sheep. When Samuel sees him, God says to Samuel, "David is the chosen one." Samuel anoints him with oil. While all this is going on, Saul is being tormented by an evil spirit. One of his attendants suggests that they get someone to come and play a harp to soothe him when the spirit comes upon him. Saul agrees to this, and one of the attendants knows about David, and David can play a harp, so they send for him. And when David does play, when Saul's feeling under the influence of the evil spirit, he really does feel soothed. So he sends word to Jesse, David's father, to ask that David can stay in court with Saul. Now the Philistines had gathered their forces for war in Judah. They camped on one hill. The Israelites' army came and camped on the other hill, and in between the two of them was a valley. The Philistines had a champion called Goliath. The Bible says he's 9 feet tall, and he had armour and weapons made of bronze, which was very heavy, so he must have been a really strong, powerful man. He comes into the valley every day and he challenges the Israelites, challenges Saul to send out a champion to fight against him. During these times he stood in front of the army, he's mocking the Israelites and he's mocking Saul and he's mocking their God too. For 40 days, every day Goliath goes out, challenges the Israelites. David is then sent by his father Jesse to take food to his 3 oldest brothers, who at this time are serving in the Israelite army. David arrives just as Goliath is challenging the army on that particular day, and David starts asking the soldiers standing around, says, "What's going on? What's the reward for the man who kills Goliath?" Somehow word gets back to Saul about David asking all these questions, and Saul summons David. When David gets in to meet Saul, he says to him, "I'll fight him, I'll fight Goliath." Saul says to him, "No, you can't, you're just a boy." David then reminds Saul that he's a shepherd, and when he's out in the fields that he's had to fight lions and bears with his bare hands and kill them to protect the sheep. He just doesn't think Goliath's any different to that. So Saul gives him permission to go and fight. David tries on Saul's armour, but it's all too big for him. It's too clumsy, so he takes all the armour off and he decides to go with what he's familiar with. The Bible says he picks up 5 smooth stones and he goes out with his sling to face Goliath. And we all know what happens. David fires a sling shot, the stone hits him, it says, right in the middle of the forehead. He falls down and David kills him. When David kills Goliath, the Israelites are overjoyed, and now they're feeling brave again and they're feeling like an army, and they chase the Philistines and they defeat them. David is declared a hero. After the battle, Saul keeps David with him, and David becomes really good friends with Saul's son Jonathan. David carries on just being more and more successful as a soldier and gets a really high rank in the army. Not only this, but David's becoming a bigger and bigger hero to the people, to the Israelites, and this makes Saul really jealous. But then Saul becomes afraid of David because he can see that God is with David. Saul's trying to think of ways to get David alongside him, so he offers David his eldest daughter in marriage, but David refuses, saying he's not from a good enough family, so he shouldn't marry someone from the royal family. But then Saul's second daughter falls in love with David. David still says he's not good enough to marry the daughter. Saul then says, "Look, if you kill 100 Philistine soldiers, you can marry my daughter." But David goes out and he actually kills 200. So once again, David's doing more than he needs to. And when Saul sees how much that his own daughter loves David and how successful he's becoming, how much the people are loving David, he just becomes more and more jealous. It says in the Bible that Saul remained David's enemy for the rest of his life. David carried on and he became the most successful officer in the Israelite army. That's where our story ends today. Watch again tomorrow to see what the next part of David's story is. What can we take from today's readings? Well, David was Jesse's youngest son, the youngest of 8, and in society at that time, this would normally mean he'd be the last in line for anything with regards to his family or honours or anything like that. But God stepped in and chose him. God said to Samuel in verse 7 of chapter 16, when he's presented with Jesse's sons, he says, "Don't consider his appearance or height. Man looks at the outside appearance, but God looks at the heart." That's the same with the world today and everybody around us. People judge each other and judge us by their appearance, by how much wealth they've got, by what possessions they have. But God doesn't do that. And because God doesn't do that, that means we shouldn't be like that when we're judging others, and also we shouldn't be like that when we're judging ourselves. And David, despite his size, he was confident that he could kill Goliath. You know, he said he'd had the experiences of tackling bears and lions, and he says to Saul that Goliath is just like one of them. David trusts in his own talents and his own weapons and his own experience. When he confronts Goliath, he says to him that he comes against him in the name of the Lord. He knows that God is with him. And when we know God is with us in a situation, we know it's going to be okay. It may not always be easy, but we know it's going to be okay, no matter how things may look. We all need to do our best to keep next to God and to be striving to hear from Him in our lives, to remember who we are in God and to recognise the gifts and the skills that He's given us. And let me tell you, we all have something to offer God that God can use. And whatever we've got, we need to make these available to God as well to use. I would encourage you, please don't be shaped by the world's expectations of people or their thoughts on what success is measured by or what possessions you have or don't have. So today I just want to encourage you to say that all of us has something in our lives, a gift or part of our characteristic or personality that God can use. I want to encourage you today and say to you, think about what you have, what you are like as a person that you can offer to God to use. That's it for today. Please leave your comments or questions in the section below. Don't forget, every Friday at 4 p.m, Quaker and Amy are on Instagram Live with Life Words Unpacked, where you can talk about anything that we've said in these videos, any questions you may have, and also just chat with them and have a good time together. Please remember to tell your youth group leaders that we have Bible study notes available on all these videos on our website, so I encourage them to go and have a look and download them. Don't forget, guys, if you miss a video, they're all on our YouTube channel. Tap in New Youth for Christ in the search and you'll see all of the videos that we've got available there. There's not just the Life Words videos, there's a whole lot more as well. That's it for today. Take care, guys. Stay safe. God bless you. And watch out for the next video from Life Words.